Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist, and I want to share some psychological commentary on a current event. Specifically, I just wanted to share a couple of psychological thoughts about the missing 84-year-old woman, Nancy Guthrie, who went missing from her home this past weekend. She was reported missing February 1st from her home, which was outside of Tucson, Arizona, in the Catalina foothills area. This woman happens to be the daughter of the TV show host, Savannah Guthrie. So this case is getting a lot of media attention. And already there are a lot of people talking online about this case and a lot of media attention on it. And I wanted to just point out a couple of things that I think can be important for us to remember psychologically. One point is that there's already a lot of online talk about why an 84-year-old woman would be, quote unquote, allowed to live on her own, why family members would allow that, especially family members who have a lot of financial resources. But one of the things that I just want to point out, though, is that a lot of people at this age, in their 80s, even in their 90s, really strongly resist wanting to go to any kind of assisted care facility or other kind of environment where they would lose their independence. In fact, this issue is something that so many families have arguments about. The children, the adult children of these elderly parents, and really wanting their parents to be in a setting that they would feel is more protective and safer for them. But a lot of times, their parents, the elderly adults, don't want to give up the autonomy. And it makes sense. A lot of times, they want to stay in their home, they want to stay in a familiar surrounding. And this issue is actually quite complicated because sometimes for elderly individuals, when their environments change too much or too drastically, it can actually lead to an increase in negative mental health symptoms. So, these issues, I just want to point out, are not easy at all for families to deal with and often involve, significant family tensions and conflicts. Another point to remember when it comes to elderly individuals who want to live on their own is a lot of times they are cognitively still very intact. Maybe they may have some difficulties with mobility or other physical issues, but they really are mentally intact in so many ways. And so they're not really ready to give up a sense of freedom that they feel like they would lose in another kind of more restrained or confined environment. Another point that I want to share about this specific case, which is interesting, is that Sheriff Nanos from Pima County is talking a lot to the media to try to answer a lot of the media's requests for information because it is so overwhelming. There are so many requests for information and updates. And if you have seen any of these interviews with Sheriff Nanos, you've seen that he is really doing his best to be available and to answer questions, and yet at the same time, really can't say much in order to protect the integrity of the case. Well, one of the things that I know happens in cases like this is that a lot of people hear about all the media attention that goes on some of these higher profile cases, and they feel really strongly that the media needs to let law enforcement do their job and not bother law enforcement. But at the same time, one point that I want to make is that a lot of times the public and actually public tips and public leads are very helpful to law enforcement and sometimes can end up providing some very useful information. So I think it's important to remember that while there are some negatives that can sometimes happen as a result of media attention on a case like this, there are also some positives as well. Well, I know in this case, the public is really wishing and hoping for the best possible outcome. We can only imagine how the loved ones and family members and friends of this woman, Nancy Guthrie, how they are feeling, what they are worried about, what they're struggling with today. Just remember, for anybody who is dealing with any kind of traumatic event, dealing with any kind of event in their own life that is causing this degree of upset, social support is what is necessary. Reach out, ask for help, connect with others. Remember that you are not alone. These are some of the things that can help any family coping with the traumatic event. I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist.